The Roman Empire didn't fall because of barbarians. It fell when they stopped eating these vegetables. One of them was so powerful, emperors made it illegal for common citizens to grow it. And the craziest part? You've probably walked past it growing wild last week without knowing. The Romans ate a plant so valuable, they stored it next to their gold. Not in the kitchen, in the treasury. Julius Caesar himself kept 1,500 pounds of silphium locked away with Rome's most precious reserves. That's how much this thing mattered. So what was it? Silphium grew in one tiny region of Libya called Cyrene. Nowhere else on Earth, and Romans went absolutely crazy for it. They used it as medicine, birth control, cooking spice, flavor enhancer, you name it, silphium did it. Here's where it gets interesting. Modern scientists who've studied ancient descriptions believe this plant contained natural compounds stronger than the synthetic hormones we manufacture today. One plant, growing wild in the dirt. And no GMO has ever come close to replicating what silphium could do. But the Romans loved it too much. They harvested it so aggressively, so relentlessly, that by the 1st century AD, gone. Completely extinct. They literally ate it out of existence. The closest thing we have now is a relative called Asafoetida, sells for premium prices at specialty stores, but experts say it contains maybe a fraction of the original's potency. Rome's favorite plant, worth its weight in silver, wiped off the planet by their own appetite. Now here's something most people don't realize. Silphium had a secret weapon hiding underground, and the Romans paid even more for that part. Now here's where it gets interesting. Laser root wasn't a separate plant. It was the underground portion of silphium, and Romans treated it like a completely different ingredient. Why? Because the flavor was something else entirely. Imagine garlic and truffle had a baby. That's laser root. Roman chefs guarded their supply like my grandfather guarded his TV remote. They'd grate tiny shavings into dishes the same way fancy restaurants use saffron today. A little went a long way, but the real kicker? This wasn't just about taste. Modern food scientists have analyzed ancient descriptions, and they found something surprising. Laser root contained natural sulfur compounds, the same type we now know protects your heart and arteries. So Romans weren't just eating well. They were accidentally medicating themselves with every meal. Ancient texts mention soldiers staying healthy during brutal campaigns when fresh food was weeks away. Their secret ration? Dried laser root. And unlike the artificial flavor enhancers cooked up in laboratories today, this stuff actually nourished you while making food taste incredible. 2 birds, 1 root. Of course, when something works this well, people get greedy. Supplies started running low, prices shot through the roof, and suddenly, counterfeiters saw opportunity. They mixed cheap herbs with whatever scraps they could find and sold it as genuine laser root. Rome's first food fraud scandal. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? But silphium's family wasn't the only thing Romans grew. Alexander's. Never heard of it? Neither had I until I found it growing wild on a beach in Cornwall and nearly mistook it for something poisonous. Turns out this plant dominated Roman gardens for 500 years straight. 5 centuries. That's longer than most empires last, let alone a vegetable trend. Here's what made it special. Every single part was edible. Roots, stems, leaves, flowers, seeds. Romans basically got 5 vegetables from one plant. Try doing that with your supermarket broccoli. And Roman soldiers, they planted Alexanders everywhere they marched, from Britain all the way to Syria. It was their version of fast food franchising, except actually nutritious. The plant packs 3 times more vitamin C than modern celery, grows in garbage soil, doesn't need watering. Basically, it thrives on neglect. My kind of gardening. So why did it disappear? Celery happened. During the Middle Ages, Europeans decided they preferred something blander, less flavor, less nutrition, but hey, at least it was familiar. Classic upgrade, right? The funny thing is, Alexander's never actually went extinct. It still grows wild along British coastlines right now. Foragers who stumble across it say the same thing. This tastes better than anything at the grocery store. We literally abandoned a superior vegetable because we forgot it existed. But Alexander's wasn't the only Roman green that outperformed everything we eat today. Good King Henry. Sounds like a British monarch, right? Nope. It's actually a vegetable that Romans trusted more than spinach. Way more. They hauled this plant across the Alps, and here's the kicker. It kept feeding European peasants for 1,500 years after Rome collapsed. That's not a vegetable, that's a survival strategy with leaves. And unlike spinach, which throws a tantrum the second temperatures rise, Good King Henry just doesn't care. Drought? Fine. Frost? Whatever. Complete neglect from a forgetful gardener? Thrives anyway. I've killed cacti, but this thing would probably outlive me. But the real magic is what you get from a single plant. Edible leaves, asparagus-like shoots, protein-rich seeds, 3 harvests from one vegetable. Modern agriculture can't even dream that efficiently. Nutritional testing revealed something that should embarrass every spinach farmer. Good King Henry contains 40% more iron than the stuff in plastic containers at your grocery store, and it grows without a single drop of pesticide. So why'd we abandon it? The leaves aren't uniform, some big, some small, some awkwardly shaped. Machines couldn't harvest it neatly, so commercial farms said goodbye. We traded superior nutrition for conveyor belt convenience. Home gardeners who've rediscovered it, they report something almost unbelievable. One planting produces food for 20 years straight. Now here's where things get interesting. There's another Roman root vegetable so sweet, an emperor demanded it personally. Emperor Tiberius was one of the most powerful men who ever lived. He could have anything: gold, jewels, palaces across the empire. What did he demand be shipped from Germany every single year? A root vegetable called skirret. Not exactly what you'd expect on a Caesar's wish list, right? But Tiberius knew something we forgot. This humble root tasted like someone crossed a parsnip with sweet potato, then added honey. Natural sweetness that no modern breeding program has ever replicated. I tried growing it last year. The flavor genuinely confused me. It's sweet, but not like a carrot pretending to be dessert. More like sweetness that actually belongs there. Here's where it gets interesting for anyone watching their blood sugar. Skirret contains complex sugars that your body processes slowly. No spike, no crash. Roman physicians prescribed it for digestive problems, and modern research shows they were onto something real. The root is packed with prebiotic fibers that feed your gut bacteria. So why did this imperial favorite vanish? Laziness. Well, commercial laziness anyway. Each skirret plant produces a cluster of roots tangled together like a knot of Christmas lights. Separating them requires actual human hands. Machines can't do it. And once farming became all about efficiency, skirret got left behind. The good news? Heirloom seed companies sell skirret seeds now. Early adopters keep saying the same thing. This is what carrots should taste like. But skirret wasn't the only overlooked root the Romans prized. Orach makes spinach look like it's not even trying. Romans grew this stuff in red, gold, and green varieties. And here's the kicker. They used the same plant for dinner and dyeing their clothes. One vegetable, 2 completely different jobs. Try getting that kind of value from your bagged salad mix. But the nutrition is where things get ridiculous. Orach packs more protein per ounce than any leafy green we eat today. More than kale, more than collards, more than whatever superfood your neighbor won't shut up about. And it grows in salty soil, the kind of soil that makes other plants shrivel up and quit. Roman farmers along the coast loved it because nothing else would survive there anyway. Medieval Europeans called it mountain spinach and depended on it for centuries. Then, American spinach imports showed up, and suddenly orach seemed old-fashioned, outdated. Your grandmother's vegetable, so everyone forgot about it. Here's what kills me, though. Orach delivers twice the calcium of regular spinach. Twice! But without the oxalates that block your body from actually absorbing it. You know how people say spinach is great for calcium? Well, your body can barely use most of it. Orach fixed that problem centuries ago. Oh, and one more thing. Plant it once and it self-seeds so aggressively you'll have food forever without lifting a finger. Speaking of plants that modern breeding completely ruined, modern celery is basically the ghost of what it used to be. See, breeders took smallage and said, let's make it bigger, milder, and easier to sell. Mission accomplished. They also accidentally stripped out most of the nutrition and all of the flavor. Smallage was the original, the real deal. And Romans didn't just eat it, they weaponized it. Gladiators ate smallage before stepping into the arena because they believed it made them more aggressive, more alert, more dangerous. Now, I'm not saying a vegetable turned men into killing machines, but I'm also not saying it didn't help. Here's where it gets interesting. Smallage contains apigenin, a compound that modern scientists are now studying for two completely opposite effects. It reduces inflammation and anxiety at the same time. That's like a food that calms you down while also making you sharper. Try finding that in a supplement aisle. The plant grows wild in marshlands across Europe. No fertilizer needed, no irrigation, no farmer babysitting it. Commercial agriculture looked at that and said, too inconvenient, then bred the independence right out of it. Ancient cooks used smallage seeds as a spice. One pinch flavored an entire pot of stew. Stronger than anything labeled celery salt today, wild smallage still exists. People walk past it constantly without any idea what they're ignoring. But smallage isn't the only Roman plant hiding in plain sight. Every modern beet, sugar beet, and Swiss chard, they all came from one plant, sea beet. Romans didn't even bother cultivating it. Why would they? The stuff grew wild along every Mediterranean shoreline, free for the taking. Here's what gets me. We spent centuries breeding improved versions that die if you look at them wrong. Meanwhile, the original survives drought, salt spray, soil so poor your tomatoes would file for bankruptcy. Roman sailors figured this out early. They packed sea beet leaves on long voyages because nothing else stayed fresh that long. Not lettuce, not cabbage, nothing. But here's the trade-off nobody talks about. Modern sugar beets got sweeter. Great for making sugar, terrible for your liver. See, the original sea beet contained bitter compounds that worked like a natural cleanse. Breeders removed the bitter taste, and the health benefits went with it. The leaves contain betalains. Those are the pigments that make beets red. Laboratory studies showed these compounds neutralize toxins better than most supplements you'd buy at a health store, and they're just sitting there in a beach plant. The wildest part? Sea beet still grows along European coastlines, completely legal to harvest, completely legal to grow at home. No permits, no special seeds, no middleman. Now, if you think a beechweed is impressive, wait until you hear which Roman vegetable got banned from monasteries. Roman authorities actually tried to ban this next one, not because it was dangerous, because they thought it was too exciting. Arugula, that peppery salad green you get at fancy restaurants, Romans believed it worked better than any love potion. And they weren't joking around. Monks couldn't eat it. Priests couldn't eat it. The church considered arugula a genuine threat to celibacy vows. One little leaf, and apparently all bets were off. Now here's what's actually interesting. Romans served arugula at every wedding feast. Tradition demanded it. The whole culture believed those spicy leaves guaranteed a productive wedding night. Talk about high expectations for a salad. The plant contains a compound called irucin. Modern researchers found it supports heart health and helps your body detox naturally. So maybe the Romans were onto something, just not exactly what they thought. But here's where the story gets wild. Medieval Christians tried to wipe arugula off the map entirely. Too Roman, too pagan, too stimulating. They almost succeeded. Almost. Italian grandmothers said no. They kept growing it in secret gardens, passed seeds down through generations, ignored every official disapproval for centuries. Why did arugula survive when so many others vanished? The plant grows from seed to harvest in 30 days. 30. And it reseeds itself constantly. You literally cannot kill it if you try. Speaking of survival, the next vegetable makes arugula look high maintenance. Here's the thing about purslane. Romans grew it on purpose. They actually cultivated this plant in their gardens. Americans? We spend billions on herbicides trying to kill it in our lawns. Same plant, completely different attitudes. And honestly, the Romans had it right. Purslane contains more omega-3 fatty acids than any other leafy vegetable on the planet. We're talking amounts comparable to fish. From a plant, growing in the cracks of your driveway. I actually pulled some from my backyard last summer. Thought it was just another weed until my neighbor, who grew up in Greece, nearly tackled me. "That's food!" she yelled. And she wasn't wrong. Roman soldiers ate this stuff raw during long marches. One handful gave them hydration and nutrition simultaneously. The succulent leaves hold water like tiny reservoirs. But here's where it gets interesting. Purslane contains melatonin. Yes, the sleep hormone. And not trace amounts either. Higher concentrations than any other food source scientists have tested. Romans were eating natural sleep aids without even knowing it. So why did we forget about it? Simple. The plant was everywhere. Too common. Agricultural experts stopped teaching people to grow something that grew itself. Every single state in America has purslane growing wild right now. 4,000 years of feeding humanity. Zero cultivation effort required. Speaking of plants that refuse to die, the next one literally saved entire populations from starvation. Here's where things get interesting. Mallow wasn't just another Roman vegetable, it was their emergency backup plan for when everything went wrong. Sieges, famines, total crop failures. When Romans had absolutely nothing left to eat, mallow kept them alive. The plant grows everywhere people don't want it. Abandoned lots, roadsides, disturbed soil, almost like it knows exactly where hungry people will be looking. And here's what makes mallow genuinely remarkable. Every single part is edible. Leaves, flowers, roots, seeds, one plant, complete nutrition. My grandmother used to say mallow was poor man's medicine cabinet. And she wasn't wrong. Roman physicians reached for mallow first when treating coughs, burns, and stomach problems. Why? The leaves contain something called mucilage. It's this thick, soothing substance that coats your insides better than those chalky tablets from the pharmacy. But wait, you know marshmallows? Those fluffy things you roast over campfires? The original recipe actually used mallow root. Real marshmallows were medicine. Candy companies eventually replaced the plant with corn syrup and gelatin because it was cheaper. They kept the name but ditched everything that made it useful. Typical, right? The Romans would probably laugh at us. We turned their emergency survival food into sugary junk, then forgot the real thing existed entirely. Speaking of forgotten foods that hide in plain sight, the next plant makes mallow look like a newcomer to human history. Fat hen might be the oldest food on this entire list, and I mean old. Archaeologists found fat hen seeds in the stomachs of bog bodies preserved for 4,000 years. These people were eating it 2,000 years before Rome even existed. So what did Romans do with this ancient plant? They got clever. They harvested the leaves like spinach and collected the seeds like grain. Two completely different foods from one plant. That's efficiency my grandfather would appreciate. Here's what gets interesting. Those tiny seeds pack more protein than quinoa, and they contain all essential amino acids, complete nutrition from something most farmers today call a weed. Speaking of farmers, they hate this plant. Fat hen grows faster than any weed killer can stop it. Seriously, spray it on Monday, it's back by Thursday. Eventually, agriculture just gave up and labeled it a pest. But here's the thing, nobody mentions. Fat hen thrives in soil too poor for commercial crops. It actually prefers the garbage dirt that nothing else wants. I tried growing vegetables in my backyard's worst corner once. Everything died except the fat hen that showed up uninvited. Took me a year to realize I should have been eating it. And get this, indigenous Americans cultivated fat hen for 7,000 years. Roman farming and Native American farming traditions overlapped completely without either side knowing the other existed. But the next vegetable, people believed it could cure snake bites. The name Scorzonera comes from the Catalan word for viper. Why? Romans were convinced this black-skinned root could cure snake bites. Did it actually work? Probably not. But here's what actually happened when people ate it regularly. They got healthier, a lot healthier. The flavor is where things get interesting. Imagine if artichoke hearts and oysters had a baby. That's Scorzonera. Nothing in your grocery store tastes remotely similar. I've grown it twice, and both times guests asked what expensive restaurant ingredient I'd snuck into dinner. Just regular old Scorzonera. Spanish doctors during the plague years reached for this root when nothing else worked. Desperate times, desperate measures, but the patients who ate Scorzonera soup seemed to recover faster than those who didn't. Coincidence? Maybe. But they kept prescribing it for 200 years. Modern science finally figured out why. The root is packed with inulin, a prebiotic fiber that feeds your gut bacteria better than those expensive supplement powders. Your intestines basically throw a party when Scorzonera shows up. So why did we stop growing it? Patience. Or lack of it. Scorzonera takes 18 months to mature. 18 months. Modern farming wants crops in and out within one season. Waiting around for a root vegetable? Not profitable enough. European specialty markets still carry it for premium prices. Speaking of premiums, the next vegetable was literally worth stealing for... Okay, here's a fun fact. The fairy tale Rapunzel, it's actually about a vegetable. Not kidding. The Brothers Grimm story starts with a pregnant woman who craves Rampion so desperately that her husband breaks into a witch's garden to steal it. That's how badly people wanted this plant. Romans grew Rampion as a 2-for-1 deal. The roots taste like mild radishes. The leaves work like spinach. One planting, 2 completely different vegetables. Pretty clever, right? But here's where things get sad. By the 1800s, Rampion had become so rare that botanists started panicking. Multiple European countries classified it as endangered. A vegetable that once grew in common gardens was disappearing. Why? Same old story. It grows slowly. Commercial farms want crops they can harvest in weeks, not months, so they stopped planting it. Then people forgot it existed. Then it nearly vanished entirely. 19th century doctors actually prescribed Rampion roots for throat problems and respiratory infections. There was real medicine in this thing, and we almost lost it because nobody wanted to wait for harvest. The good news? Seed banks preserved the genetics. Dedicated gardeners, the stubborn types who refuse to let history disappear, are slowly bringing Rampion back from the edge. Now, the last vegetable on this list didn't just survive history. Roman legions literally depended on it for conquest, and multiple governments actually banned it. Cicerchia might be the most controversial bean in history. Roman legions survived on it. Italian governments tried to erase it. Here's the deal. This bean grows when everything else dies. Drought that kills chickpeas? Cicerchia doesn't care. Soil so poor that lentils won't sprout? Cicerchia thrives anyway. It's basically the cockroach of legumes, except it's actually delicious. Roman soldiers carried dried Cicerchia on campaigns lasting years. The beans never spoiled. They provided complete protein, and they weighed almost nothing compared to the nutrition they delivered. But here's where things get complicated. Cicerchia contains a neurotoxin. Sounds terrifying, right? Well, it only becomes dangerous under one specific condition. You'd have to eat nothing but Cicerchia for months straight during a famine. That's exactly what happened during wartime food shortages, which is why Italy and Spain banned the bean entirely in the 20th century. The Romans never had this problem. Why? They knew how to prepare it properly. Soak it, boil it, drain it. The toxin washes away completely. It's like saying potatoes are poisonous because the green parts contain solanine. Technically true, practically irrelevant if you're not eating them wrong. The European Union finally lifted the ban in 2010. Now Cicerchia sells as a premium high-protein alternative to chickpeas. 15 vegetables. 15 solutions our ancestors figured out centuries ago. Sometimes the old ways really were better.